Welcome to Kent Hance, the best storyteller in Texas podcast. We would love for you to follow us on Instagram at Best Storyteller Podcast. Also like and subscribe to this podcast. We start every episode the same way, and it's the saying of the day. What do you have for us, Chance?
Saying of the day is from Warren Buffett, and it says, hire slowly, fire quickly. And I think that's good advice. You're interviewing people, check out their references. We had a girl that applied to work for me in Congress, and she was Phi Beta Kappa, Maryland. And she'd been there about 3 weeks, and Glenn Hunt, my chief of staff, said they got a weak Phi Beta Kappa chapter if she is in it. And we got to checking, and she hadn't even graduated, much less been Phi Beta Kappa. We let her go quickly.
How do you have that conversation with her? Well, we
checked your references, and one of the things you said that you'd accomplished, being Phi Beta Kappa, you never were in the Phi Beta Kappa chapter. You never got in. Mm-hmm. So why would you think that? Well, I was close. And that's why. I mean, you went to Maryland for 3 years. You never graduated, mm-hmm. And this just won't work out. You need to, retire like now.
You had to wonder, how'd you get this far?
How did you get this far lying? I guess they do it and they get by with it. We had a candidate for the Railroad Commission in Texas one time that Ann Richards appointed, and she said in her resume that she is Phi Beta Kappa, and she's in the business school. You can't be a Phi Beta Kappa in the business school. You got to be in arts and sciences. And she made the front page of a Dallas Morning News back when people read newspapers, 18 out of 21 days, and they were all negative stories.
18 of 21.
18 of 21, and she just got slammed. I mean, she didn't do well at all. She got defeated. I think some people, they tell a little lie. Every year you see somebody running for Congress will claim that they've done something they hadn't. The guy Blumenthal, the U.S. Senator from Connecticut, claimed he was a decorated war hero in Vietnam. He'd never been. Mm-hmm. He had never been. He just lied about it. And, he was liberal enough that they forgave him. He just overlooked it and elected him anyway.
It just seems like you can do anything and still get reelected.
It depends on the district. We had some cases where people in certain districts would get reelected. They'd get in trouble. They'd still get reelected. Mm-hmm. And some districts were not. I think you have to look at each district. Connecticut was very forgiving. Massachusetts, forgiving. There was a guy that I was in Congress with, got in trouble in a personal affair of some kind, and his district didn't say no to him. They said, hell no. He didn't last long. We impeached, this story that I'd forgotten to tell sometime. When I was in Congress, we impeached a judge from Miami, and the Senate confirmed it. They followed through with the impeachment. He was out of office, so he ran for Congress and got elected and came up there and served with us. You just can't make that stuff up. In that certain districts, we have a guy here in the state of Texas been convicted and served a little time mm-hmm. on some charges, and he continued to get reelected.
Incredible.
Yeah.
I guess that just goes to show you the electorate doesn't often read the news.
And if they do, they don't care.
Right. Going back to the saying of the day, firing quickly. And I know your friend Jim Sowell had thoughts on that.
Yeah, Jim Sowell told me someone had told him the first time you ought to fire somebody is the first time you think about it. Because if you're thinking about it, it's not going to work. Mm-hmm. The longer you think about it, and he also says the hardest employee to keep is the one that you'd kind of like to fire, but they're not bad enough to fire right now, and you just wish they'd leave or something like that. But first time you think about it, you ought to do it and let them get some other job and move on.
Before we move on to more, there's one last thing considering this saying of the day from Warren Buffett is I like that you always ask the people in your office about candidates that you're thinking about hiring.
I always ask the staff I'd have them meet them, or at least the receptionist always got to meet them, and my assistant got to meet them, and I'd have the other people meet them, the chief of staff and whoever, and I'd ask them, what do you think? And one time, Linda Steele, who worked for me for 22 years, she said on this guy, we were looking for a president at Texas Tech, and she said, he won't fit. She said, he won't fit you, he won't fit Texas Tech, he won't fit Lubbock. I'm just telling you, don't hire him. Mm-hmm. And I was impressed with him. And she said, he doesn't treat people right. And I swear, he's nice to me. She said, they're all going to be nice to you. You're the chancellor, you're making the decision. And I didn't hire him, and another university hired him, and they fired him 3 months later. He didn't last but 3 months.
Have you ever noticed women are better at that than men are?
Yeah, they get a feel. I think they can get a feel of who's what, and have an understanding of more about the individual, about internally who they really are.
The big headline this week was the mayor-elect of New York City made his way to Washington, D.C. We got the socialist meeting with the capitalist, and what I think the media was hoping was going to be a fist fight. That didn't happen.
No, it didn't. Trump had him down, and I thought Trump would, say some negative thing, but he was very nice, very polite to him. And now that doesn't mean Trump's going to be nice to him as he tries to socialize New York City. And they're talking about the thing they want to do is raise the taxes on the top 1 or 2%. Well, those only people paying taxes, and they're paying 17% now in New York City of the city and state income tax. And so you add that to the 35 to 40% that most of them are paying on federal. So they're paying somewhere between 52 and 57% of their earnings. So they've got to work for free from January until almost July. Mm-hmm. It just doesn't make sense. It won't work. And I think Margaret Thatcher had the best saying about socialism. She said it works until you run out of other people's money. I thought that Trump handled it right. It was nice. He was polite. There'll be other times to fight. I remember when Reagan got elected in 1980, and I was in Congress, and Reagan went down to Tip O'Neill's office to meet with him at the Capitol. Usually they have the speaker come up, the majority leader, and all the leadership. And he went down, and he wanted Jim Baker, later told me, who was chief of staff. Jim Baker said, we want to set the tone that we were willing to work with him. Mm-hmm. And when fight developed, there's people say, well, Reagan went down there and visited with him. And so he was trying to work with him, trying to do everything that he could. And it paid off for him. And Reagan would he would call people, and he'd call them down to his office, and he worked Congress hard and knew how to work them. Mm-hmm. And was a very charming guy, had a good personality, much like Bill Clinton, and Trump. Trump wants to be charming. He can turn it on, and he's a developer in New York City. You got to be tough to be a developer in New York City, and you also have to have good people skills, and that he'll say some things that, as a supporter, you might wish he hadn't said, but the good outweighs the bad. And with Reagan, he just wanted to put everybody on notice that he was trying to work with the speaker, and it really helped him later as he passed his budget cuts and his tax cuts.
It often seems like people are looking at President Trump and what he said today and not thinking about what he said today, what that might mean in 3 or 4 weeks.
He will jump around. As a developer, you're bargaining with people, and you're trying to get the best price possible, and you give and take, and so he jumps around. I've seen him say, well, we're going to have a 35% tariff on such and such country or something. It wound up as 15%. And so, that was his opening bargaining move. Mm-hmm. And that's the way he does business. And I think that anyone that's, trying to get something done with the administration, they have to realize that, and it's a bargaining thing, and he'll make some adjustments.
Well, this is the week of Thanksgiving. A lot of people traveling. I read this week that 81 million people are going to be traveling this weekend. And a question was asked to a group of people, how far they'd be willing to go to pick up a loved one for the holidays or for anything, really, how far you'd go. And the average driver said they'd go 172 miles to pick up a loved one. That's a long way.
It's about 3 hours, 3 hours to get them, 3 hours bring them back, 3 hours take them home, 3 hours come back. All of a sudden, you're looking at 12 hours, half a day. Well, I don't know. Aunt Bessie, she's okay, but I don't know if she's worth 12 hours, what somebody else say. But I think it is, it sounds true to me that a relative, somebody that you love and hadn't seen in a while, especially if they're alone, you go get them. And,
made me think how there's a lot of rural America that has to drive that far to get to an airport.
In southeastern New Mexico, you got to go to Lubbock or Midland, get a flight, and so you're looking at 2 hours, 2.5, 3 hours to get to the airport,
right?
To go somewhere, and so or you can go to Albuquerque, but there's not that many flights going into Roswell. And, there's from Lubbock to Austin, there's an early flight in the morning, 7:30. You get in here at 8:30 and go do business. And there's a flight going back that afternoon or that night at around 7:30 or 8. So you can get a lot done in one day in the capital. And I always, if I'm on that flight, I always hope it's full, because if it's not full, they may take it, it may be its last leg. And so you got to hope that it has enough people that it'll justify continuing to be on the schedule.
And when you were chancellor at Texas Tech, you had a rule about people picking you up at the airport. They better have something with them or they're going to lose their job.
Well, here's the deal. They'd pick me up at the airport and bring me my mail summary. And I always had one person, whether it was in Congress or state senator, chancellor, that one person opened and read the mail. And they'd have that mail summary for me to work on from the time I left the airport till the time I got home. That way I didn't waste any time. And I got home twice, this happened. They'd forgotten the garage door opener. We couldn't get in. We'd have to call the Tech police to come let us in. It's embarrassing. And so I had a meeting of the staff, of all the staff. And I go in the meeting and I said, this is about the problem we're having of being locked out of my own house. And I said, what is this? And I held up the garage door opener. They all said, the garage door opener. I said, no. What is it called? They said, well, the garage door opener. And I said, no, from this day forward, it's called job. And if you lose it, what have you lost? And they all kind of chuckled. There's a lot of nervous type laugh, and it never got lost after that. Never. It was always there. And so once it got the name of job, they didn't want to lose it. What happened? Well, lost my job.
I would be willing to bet they never forgot that.
No, they didn't. And to this day, I have some of them ask me about who's you got your job now. How's that going? Bradley Martin, who's now vice president at Texas Tech, one of the sharpest guys I ever had work for me. He always got a chuckle out of that. I told his parents about that, and they thought it was funny. We got a lot of laughs, and I didn't have to fire anybody. It worked. If you're trying to get across something, if you'll say it in such words that they mean it, that they know that you mean it, they'll make sure that the problem's solved.
Speaking of jobs, there was a report came out this week that said 47% of Americans have quote unquote revenge quit and left a job abruptly. Basically just walked into their boss's office and said they quit. And the number one reason they gave was because of a toxic work environment. Anybody ever do that to you at the law office?
Not that I can think of. Usually they give you 2 weeks or 30 days notice or something like that. And I want a few days notice. It really doesn't have to be 2 weeks, but they got to figure out. But usually the ones did, they were getting a promotion at a better job or something. Mm-hmm. And I don't think we have a toxic work environment. Hance Scarborough, our law firm, we've got 2 people. We started in 94. We've got 2 people were there right at the start or right near the start that are still there.
That says a lot.
You don't have to retrain those people. They're doing well, mm-hmm. and they know what to do, and it works smoothly. But anytime you have a good worker, if you can do everything you can to keep them, I call my people when they're sick, call in sick or something. One of the girls one time I called and she said, I figured you'd call to check and see if I was really sick. I was calling to wish you get well quick.
Right.
And so we had a guy one time interviewed us, and he wanted to know, he was trying to get a job. He said, well, what's your sick leave? And I said, well, if you're sick, don't come to work and give it to the rest of us. Mm-hmm. And he said, but how many days do I get? And I said, how many days are you sick? If you're sick 10 days a year, you get 10. If it's 2 weeks, you get 2 weeks. And he said, well, don't you have to give a certain? I said, no. If we don't dock your pay, you get paid the same. You just don't come to work. Mm-hmm. And if you abuse it and taking advantage of it, we'll fire you. But just don't come to work when you're sick. And we had an employee one time, her mother was dying of cancer, and we told her to go home and be with your mom, and she was gone for several months, and she never missed a paycheck. So, if you're good to employees, they'll be good to you, and you got to be, in a position where they're going to sacrifice and try to help you and try to help the entire firm.
Tell everybody about the time Snake Adams got fired.
Snake was a hard worker and a smart guy and a funny guy. And he got fired at J.B. and Frank's. He put an inappropriate sign in the window. And, they let him go. And some people at Pool all the time said, Snake, you need to get back over there. That station, that service station doesn't run right now that you're gone. He understood customer service and he's good at it. He said, JB's going to have to take back some words before I'll come back. And they said, well, what kind of words? He said, you're fired. He's going to take those 2 back. I said, well, okay.
Can you tell everybody, I just recently learned about this, your motto at Tech when you were chancellor, push, push, push. And where'd that come from?
I'm telling you, in business, you got to do this. But if you're in government, you want to get something done, especially higher education, you got to push. They'll have a committee. Now, let's have a committee to look into this. A committee is nothing more than a cul-de-sac for a good idea to get down there and die. Mm-hmm. And my motto at Texas Tech when I was chancellor is push, push, push. And then I would tell people that. And my former chief of staff, Congressman Jody Arrington, and his chief, Russell Thomason, they used to say that that's something they've used. Push, push, push. If you don't push it every day, it'll just die on the vine. Mm-hmm. And that happens to law firms, to businesses, that if you're not pushing them, it's not going to get done.
A lot of people don't push because they're afraid, oh, gosh, I'm being a pain in the butt. I don't want to be pushed too hard, but I don't think you can push too hard.
No. You got something you want done and ask, has it been done? Mm-hmm. You're going to make that call next Wednesday. Today's Thursday. Have you made the call? What'd they say? I always want to report if somebody's doing something that changes a case or any contact, just write me a little note. I get, this is something new I've done, is that I get a lot of emails. I'll have some days over, in the hundreds. And what was happening to me, I didn't have time to read emails during the day, and I had two people, another lawyer, young lawyer, and my personal assistant. They read the emails. And if there's one that was pressing, they'd bring it to me. Otherwise, I'd wait. I'd get home. I'd work out. I'd eat a bite. And then about 8 o'clock, I'd start reading the emails I got that day. And then sometimes it'd be midnight before I got through with them. And so my granddaughter, Ellen Flashman, she came up with an idea to have some people that were originally from the Philippines read my emails and write out a summary. And that way the summary, I'd get one at noon and one at 5 o'clock. And we'd print it out, and I didn't have to click or anything. I just read through and put a note or do this with it or file this or whatever. And it's cut down on my time dramatically. There was a story on, and you sent me a copy of it, about busy work.
Yeah, workers waste more than half their day
doing busy work.
Busy work, yeah.
You know, filing things, looking something up for somebody.
Yeah,
things like that.
It says American office workers estimate that 51% of their day goes to busy work, like reading and writing emails, data entry, searching for files, and pulling teeth to get the materials needed for the task.
Yep. And I think that's right. About, over half their time is spent on things that they really shouldn't have to be doing. You hire people to come in and do those things, and that it moves everything faster, a lot faster.
And time is money.
Time is money, and my granddaughter spotted that, and she has her own law firm and does estate planning, stuff like that. But she had utilized some of these lawyers, and they were really good, and so she found me one, and the lady reads all my emails, and I get a lot of, if you contribute to politicians, you get on everybody's list because they just go by the list.
And boy, once you're on that list, you're not getting off it.
No, you don't get off the list. Phil Graham, one of the funniest things he's ever done, he showed me a letter that he got. He sent out, hundreds of thousands of letters to raise money. And the letter said, "Dear Senator Graham, stop sending me letters. Every time I go to the mailbox, there's a letter from you wanting money, money, money. I don't like those letters." And signed, and then it said, "P.S. You were right on so-and-so, your opponent. He really would be bad," and enclosed a check for $100. And old Graham showed me that letter, and he said, "You think he's ever going to get off that list?" And I said, "I don't think so. I don't think so at all." Now they text you.
We hope you've enjoyed today's episode. Again, we would love for you to give us a follow on Instagram. A lot of great videos that are there. So make sure you check that out at Best Storyteller Podcast. As we wrap up, we wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving and remind them of the saying of the day.
Saying of the day is from Warren Buffett. It said, "Hire slowly, fire quickly." I think it's a good saying.